Hey everyone, Brad here today from the OFAH Heritage Centre. Last month we learned all about Ontario's most popular upland game species, grouse. This month we'll learn about Ontario's other upland game birds. In this month's lesson we'll aim to answer 3 questions all about these upland game species. How do we identify these upland game birds? Where do they live? And what do they eat? So stick around as we learn all about Ontario's upland game species. How do we identify upland game birds? There are 4 popular upland game bird species in Ontario, other than grouse that is. These species are the ringneck pheasant, mourning doves, bobwhite quail, and the American woodcock. The ringneck pheasant is the largest upland game bird species in Ontario. Pheasants are about 50% larger than most chickens and are taller and slimmer than chickens as well. They're large-bodied, long-necked, and long-tailed. Males and females look different from one another. Males are unique and distinguishable from nearly any other bird species. Males have a distinct green head with a big red eye patch. They have a white ring around their necks, which is where they get their names from. They also have a coppery colored body with black and white spots. This copper colored body is iridescent, which means it's shiny and changes colors. It can shine with colors ranging from purples to greens and even blues. Females are much plainer looking than male ringneck pheasant. Females are mainly brown in color, marked with black and white specks. They're mostly found along the back and wings. Mourning doves are very common birds to see throughout most of the province of Ontario during certain times of the year. Mourning doves do not display differences between the males and females. They're mainly a brownish-gray color with some specific markings. They're mostly this gray-brown on the upper parts of their body with black markings on their wings. Mourning doves have a pale peach-colored underside and a long, thin tail. Mourning doves also have a black bill with pinkish legs and feet. In flight, you can see their long, fan-like tail with whitish tips and gray on the undersides of their wings. Bobwhite quail are the rarest game birds in Ontario, and they are very small birds. These quail are just a little larger than the size of a robin, but with a more rounded body shape. Males and females do look slightly different from each other, and the best way to tell is by looking at their head. Bobwhite quail are patterned in brown, grays, and blacks with a mixed pattern that helps to camouflage them very well. Males have a bold black and white head pattern, while females have a brown head with a buffy tan-colored throat and eyebrow marking. American woodcocks are also a popular migratory species, and they can be found throughout the province during certain times of year. Woodcocks are a unique bird with a strange-looking head structure. They're plump and short-legged shorebirds with very long, straight bills. Their bills are found lower down on the front of their head than most birds, and their large black eyes are found further back and up higher on their skulls. Their large heads, short necks, and short tails give them a bulbous look on the ground and in flight. Their wings are broad and rounded compared to most other shorebirds. Woodcock are very well camouflaged in light brown, black, buff, and gray-brown tones. Their face is a russet brown, and their crown is blackish in color. They're light gray across the neck and the back with dark and light patterned shoulders and brown wings. The undersides of woodcock are buffy to almost orange in color. Where do they live? Ringneck pheasant are not very common in Ontario, and their sightings can be rare except for in certain areas in the south and southwest of the province. They're mostly found in a few specific areas, such as Pelee Island, Norfolk County, and other areas in the furthest southwest parts of Ontario. Ringneck pheasants thrive best in fields and along the edges of forested habitat. They cannot survive through the winter in areas of the province which receive more than about 150 centimeters of snowfall. Mourning doves are migratory birds, and they're mainly only found in the province from early spring through the late fall. Mourning doves migrate south for the winter as they do not thrive in the cold winters of Ontario. They prefer to live in farms, towns, open woods, roadsides, and grasslands. And they can be found in almost any kind of open or semi-open habitat in warmer parts of North America, including forest clearings, farmland, suburbs, and prairies. Mourning doves may be most common in edge habitats, having both trees and open areas, but they can also be found in many treeless areas. Bobwhite quail are very rare in Ontario, although they used to be found along the northern parts of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Nowadays, they are only found in the most southwestern parts of the province, including Walpole Island First Nation and the surrounding areas. Bobwhite quail live in agricultural fields, grasslands, open pine or pine hardwood forests, as well as grassbrush rangelands. They seem to avoid mature woodlands and instead are often found in the early stages of regrowth after a fire, farming, logging, or other disturbances to the forest. Bobwhite quail are most numerous in patchwork of areas of fields, forest, and crops. During snowfalls in the northern part of the range, which is Ontario, bobwhite quail depend on woody cover to prevent snow from reaching the ground and blocking their food habitat. When it comes to American woodcocks, these interesting birds can be found throughout the province during the warmer months of the year, when they migrate into and across the province. Woodcocks nest in young, shrubby, deciduous forests, old fields, and mixed forest, agricultural, and urban areas across Ontario. They often hang out in forest openings and old fields in the springtime, and they often use clearings for roosting in the summer. Woodcocks depend on moist, wooded areas and wet meadows in young forests. They prefer to have a thick understory, which is the layer that grows underneath the canopy of the trees on the ground. They prefer this understory for cover and to find food. Woodcocks migrate south and they spend the winter in similar habitats, but in the southern parts of the USA. What do they eat? Ringneck pheasants in the fall and winter eat seeds, especially grain from farm fields, as well as grasses, leaves, roots, wild fruits, nuts, and insects. In spring and summer, their diet is similar, but with a greater emphasis on animal prey, insects, and fresh greenery. Pheasants eat insects such as grasshoppers, beetles, caterpillars, crickets, and ants, as well as snails and earthworms. They forage in grasslands, hayfields, woodland edges, and brushy areas, and they sometimes pick grain from cow manure in pastures. Pheasants take most of their food from the ground, scratching or digging with their bills. They can retrieve roots or seeds from as deep as 3 inches below the soil's surface. Seeds make up 99% of a mourning dove's diet. They're also known to eat wild grasses, weeds, herbs, and occasionally berries. They are also known sometimes to eat snails and other small insects. Mourning doves eat roughly 12 to 20% of their body weight per day. Can you imagine if you ate 20% of your weight in a day? You'd probably burst. When it comes to bobwhite quails, they also eat mostly seeds, but they also eat leaves and some amount of insects from the spring through to the fall. Their chicks are fed mostly insects until they are 6 to 8 weeks old. And bobwhite quail feed as a group. They scratch and peck through the leaves or the litter on the ground, foraging on low plants. When snow falls, they will seek out patches of bare ground under thick, brushy areas. Their main sources of food comes from agricultural crops, weeds, forest plants, and other vegetation. American woodcocks eat earthworms and other invertebrates they find in the soil, including snails, millipedes, spiders, flies, beetles, and ants. American woodcock are interesting. They forage by probing the soil with their long bills, which have a flexible upper jaw specialized for capturing and extracting earthworms and insects from under the Earth's surface. They're known to rock their bodies backwards and forwards as they move around feeding, shifting their weight heavily from one foot to the other. The vibrations that this motion causes may prompt earthworms to move underground, making sounds that woodcock may be able to hear or feel. Woodcocks are also known to eat small amounts of plant material such as grasses, sedges, and members of the rose family. I hope you've learned a lot about these interesting upland game species. Now that you have, keep an eye out for them as you travel throughout the province. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and then comment below. Don't forget to check out the resources section on our webpage. There, you'll find free printable resource material like mini lessons and activity pages that follow up the virtual lessons. And please subscribe to stay connected as we learn together outside the classroom.